Right then, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Authentic Witchcraft, the Meandering Magickal podcast. I'm Lisa and...
I'm Neil in the flesh.
Look, we actually are together in the flesh for the first time in 18 months of recording these or something. We're actually, for the very first time, in the same physical space to record, which is really weird. Like we've just done, it should be up on the channel already, we've just done a Witch Casket unboxing and it's very strange, but even more so, last night I did a tarot live stream and Neil was sat in the room modding behind a cabinet, and it was just like, this is very strange to do it in person.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing that.
It was fun. I mean, I genuinely can just, I mean, we were up till stupid o'clock this morning setting the world to rights and just talking bollocks, which is what you were going to do now. You've seen the title of this episode, Fairs, Festivals and Fake Fakirs. So then, we were just at a psychic festival this weekend. It was Leeds Health, Healing and Wellbeing Festival. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but it's more, this episode is more about that field in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of psychic fairs, fanzine events that you've done, pagan fed events, all of those sort of things, because they're all very different.
Yeah.
And this one that we've just done was very different again to a lot of our expectations, I think. So yeah, so I guess first of all then, Neil, when I said that I was going to go and do this psychic fair thing, what was your mental image of what it was going to be?
I mean, the only other psychic fair that I've been to was one in Newquay, like many years ago. And so I imagined that it was going to be a lot of stalls of different things, just like crystals and readings and kind of other witchy items. That's what I was imagining.
Which it kind of was.
Yeah.
There were a lot of crystals sellers there. It seems that crystals are the current biggest thing at these sort of festival events, much more so than I've ever seen in the past. Like in previous events, there were lots more. Or in previous events that I've gone to as a punter, there were lots more people selling tarot decks and oracle cards and, you know, the plethora of a witchy shop type items. But here there was a few stalls selling oracle cards, but even and tarot cards. But even those stalls had a bunch of crystals as well. So it was really kind of like very crystal heavy with lots of readers, which is kind of really interesting. So for me, the first time I ever went to one of these type of festivals, it was billed as a new age. So instantly you know what that's going to be. New age psychic fair. That's what it was. Okay. And I went with the two friends of mine that I've talked about a lot, Wayne and Hig. And we went, and I don't know if I've told this story before. I know you know it. Yeah. But as we're sort of milling around, this tarot reader comes up to us and basically says, right, I'm going to do a demonstration of tarot, and doesn't really talk a lot about the cards in the way that I do, but basically went, right, here's a card, you take a card, you take a card, you take a card, gave everybody a card, and then cold read everybody basically, and went, and I remember it so vividly because we laughed about it pretty much to his face, but not quite, because he said to my friends, he said, oh, this card means you're really subdued, you're really quiet, you hate the attention, you really hate being like around people, you're really unsociable, but not like rude, you just prefer your own company, you're an introvert. And then he collected those cards up, put them in the bottom of the pile, didn't shuffle them, and bearing in mind there was about a dozen people, so instantly 78 cards, you're down to 66 cards. We're starting to lose options here. And then gave everybody a card again, and then went round, oh, well, this means this about you, and it was literally like telling horoscopes. But he got to my friend and he went, oh, the Six of Cups, for instance, and he went, oh, Six of Cups, this means you're a great party person, you love being the center of attention, you're really gregarious, really outgoing, you're such a vibrant person, like you're the first person people ring to invite to things. And we were just like, it wasn't the Six of Cups, it was something like the Six of Swords, whatever it was a card. And I basically went, that card doesn't mean that. And I think it was because as soon as he'd gone round and said, you know, you're really like not a very social person, both me and Wayne were like, so the three of us were then going, so he obviously then clocked that this person that he said wasn't very social actually came with two friends. And then he went round and tried to like backpedal and reverse gear it, but then managed to not only contradict himself, but also gave a bullshit answer from what the card was. And it was just this thing of, I was like, you mean some of these people are genuinely fake? Like this is a fake guru? But this was a few years before I went to one of these events. So it was at Ilkley Fair, and they did a mind, body, spirit thing. And this was at the time where color therapy was all the rage. So they were selling these little vials, a bit like this one, which I've got some random liquid in, but they had little vials of water that you basically stuck in a bit like a bottle. So they had an empty bottle. So imagine that with the lid cut off, and they spray painted it yellow. And then what they would do is put their little thing of water inside and basically put like UV lamps on it. And it was charging the water with the color of the glass jar that was around the water. And then they were charging like 12 or 15 pounds for this little vial of charged water. And I was like, right. It was the time back flower remedies were all the thing as well. And I was like, right, so a tiny drop of something, I can kind of understand microcosm, macrocosm, how that works. And kinesiology photography, I can kind of get the whole, there's a photo of an aura thing. I can kind of get my head around that. But charging 12 or 15 pounds for a little vial of effectively tap water that you have stuck in a thing and shone a lamp at for 10 minutes. Really? So there was none of that at the one that we just went to. It wasn't quite that. You call it goop, don't you? Which I absolutely love. So if people don't know that, what do you mean by goop? It's
Gwyneth Paltrow's business, which is quite questionable new age stuff.
Is that the one that did the, was it selenite love eggs?
Yeah, and they ended up being quite porous, and that's apparently very bad for your vagina.
Yeah, so selenite, if you don't know, is the lamp I've got just in the background there. You can just see the light. Selenite is a really lovely stone, but it's one that isn't or isn't water safe because it fractures. It's almost like fiberglass. And so if it gets wet, or even if you drop it or anything else, it can get a little brittle, and the fibers on it come off. And this was, I'm sure it was Gwyneth that had the, if it isn't, if it was somebody else, then I apologize. So disclaimer, allegedly, in my opinion, please don't sue me, Gwyn. But these love eggs were, they weren't sold as love eggs. What were they sold as? Pelvic floor exercise eggs. So you were,
I think you were just meant to
pop it up, and clench.
I think it was a more intimate version of putting crystals in your bra.
So yeah, so there was nothing at this event that was that goop.
It was borderline goop.
A little bit, but it was fun. I mean, it was really interesting because obviously I went as Beyond Authentic Tarot, so I'll insert some pictures here of me with the moderators. You're one of the mods, aren't you? I mean, we've got the moderators. It's the first time they've ever all been together. It's so wonderful. It was like a Lisa meet and greet, you called it, wasn't it? So it's like I felt like one of the big hype house YouTubers where I'm sort of like, oh, and all these people are here and we're having a lovely photo together. It was really cool. So I'll put the photos in here. But it was a lovely event, but I had to I couldn't be 100% me. Because I had to it was quite a corporate type event, and it was very business led sort of. And there were a lot of readers there that were probably really amazing readers. And again, it's if you're used to doing that sort of circuit, it almost becomes your 50% reader, 50% salesperson. Yeah. I'm not good at that. I'm not, like, you all know it takes me at least 4 coffees before my brain fully functions. And you've witnessed that this last few days. So being at an event where 10 o'clock people are coming in the morning and having to go, morning, hiya. I'm like, morning, hello, I'm not awake yet, hello. And that was interesting. And everybody around me is like, hi, good morning. How are you? How are you doing? Oh, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And I'm like, hello, I'm alive. It was literally like the Evil Dead remakes with the zombies. It was the Deadites. It was ridiculous. And then there was a moment, because of, again, with the banner, you'll see I had the pride flag on the pentacle, which was, the pentacle was there, so if you were witchy, you'd know it. The pride flag was there, as if you're LGBTQ, IA+, you would get it. So that was really important. And it was a beacon, because we found our people, basically. There was a couple of people that walked in, didn't they? And they were like, and instantly, obviously being 6'2", being trans, I'm stood there, I'm very visible. And then there's two non-binary folk that come up and they're like, you can see them talking. And I'm like, hiya, how are you? And they're like, oh, I said, oh, did you see the flag? They were like, oh yeah, that's what drew us in. And I was like, right, found my people. And that was it. I was like, chatty. You couldn't shut me up then, could you? It was really good.
But yeah, it was just finding that balance between, because you kind of wanted to appeal to a lot of people. But you kind of wanted to find your tribe. So you kind of had the pentacle and then the pride flag there, just as a, if you know, you know, but otherwise I'm just here an event being a tarot reader. I'm
just a tarot reader. And it happens that I'm a member of the LGBTQ community. Can't speak because I still haven't had, I've only had 2 coffees, the LGBTQ community. And it just happens that I'm also overtly witchy. I mean, you know, tattoos and everything. And it was really interesting. The people that came to me for readings were people that they were my tribe. And it was kinship. And it wasn't a particularly busy event because the rain was awful. The weather was all over the place. End of August, and it was cold and windy. And at one point I was like, what is that noise? I thought they put the air vents on and it was the rain pelting off. I thought it was hailstoning. That's how bad it was. And it was like, oh, probably like people aren't going to come out in this. But the people that I read for, they were the ones that were like, we are the weirdos, mister. There were tattoos, there was piercings, there was hipsters, there were witches. It was everybody that I read for was exactly the people that I was there for. And it was amazing. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Because there were a lot of different tarot readers and they all had their own angle.
Their own, it was their own.
Yeah,
their own authenticity.
Yeah, so it was good that you were there as the alternative one almost.
A little bit. I wasn't as alternative as I've been on the channel. But it was kind of like, it's a little bit like, for any of you that watch this, obviously, probably I would say most people that watch our podcast are other in some way, whether that's part of the LGBTQ, whether that's like, you know, the last episode about demonolatry, you know, whether they're demon worshippers or demon, you know, practitioners, chaos mages, there's all sorts of, you know, we're slightly more outside of the norm, even within the sort of witchy community, as a liminal sort of witch who's not afraid of the dark side. It's like, you know, I'm on that fringe already. So that was really interesting, kind of bringing that to quite a corporate, almost goop event, and finding that balance was really interesting. What I found I don't know if you agree, but going to not just this event, but going to other events that are mind, body, spirit, there's so much of an open door sort of policy to so much of it that as sort of the fringe, if you like, it's sometimes not always very welcoming. And certainly, I mean, I was at one event as a punter, not that recently, actually, to be fair, but a little while ago, and it was really noticeable that there was a stall with 2 black women on, and they were shoved right out in the corner. And that was really noticeable, that the only people of colour there running a black woman-owned business were kind of almost like, well, you go over there. And that was really odd.
I think it's almost like presentable, like you're saying, kind of light witchcraft, where someone kind of can wander in who maybe is just into meditation, who can be, it's, what's the word, not sterilized, but kind of everyone kind of at the front of events tend to be, you know, kind of middle classish.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
With kind of being quite smart and...
Yeah, and to be fair, the one that was selling the coloured water thing at the event 100 years ago in Ilkley, it wasn't 100 years, I can't remember when it was. That was the same setup, actually, thinking about it. It was like when you first walked in, it was the aromatherapy oils, the crystals, the, you know, all of that side. And then it was the more esoteric, was like the further down you get. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, can you cope with this? Okay, you can cope with this.
It was like, this is like Spirit and Destiny level. This is Pagan Federation, Pagan Dawn level. This is where we start getting these 40 in times. And then over here somewhere is like the Inquirer. It's like, and I quite happily sit in the Inquirer section. Like, you know, here's the UFOs, and the pyramids were actually spaceships from wherever they think. I'll quite happily sit in that area because I find that all of that interesting. But it's really odd kind of being within such a mainstream. And don't get me wrong, there was no, at this event we've just done, I don't think I experienced any transphobia. I don't think I experienced any like witch hunt hate. There was nothing of that. But it was kind of like, I felt a bit like an interloper. Yeah. Like I was in disguise, kind of going, hello, I'm just a spy in your group. So one of the other things I've noticed is a trend, and I don't, if you're watching this and you've been at other events and fairs and things, I don't know whether you're picking up on it as well, but the clientele seems to get older, and there isn't a lot of, considering like how many witches and how out of the broom closet all of this is now. You know, you go on TikTok, you go on social media, you go on Tumblr, there are so many, even on what's called Pinterest, there are so many things about like chaos magic and demonolatry and all of the stuff that is on the fringe of our side of the fringe of the community, and all of that is rife, and it's young people feeding it. And yes, there's some of it that we go, TikTok witchcraft, but it's like massive now. And none of those people were at these events this weekend or at any of the ones I've been to in the last few years since after COVID. And I don't know whether that's just because young people are accessing that information differently. And perhaps, it's like there's a lot of Etsy shops, like Holland's Etsy shop, where you can now go and buy witchy items online quite happily without having to go to a festival, to a fair. I think it's just down to accessibility, really, based on age. And I don't know if it's kind of a regional thing as well, where people have always gone to these types of events and been part of a local community. People who've stayed in that region and got older, and I don't know. Well, what was it like? Because you said you went to one in Newquay. Where first of all, where is that? Is that like? Because I honestly don't know. I am the person. One of our mods lives in Chesterfield, and I was like, that's really cool. There's an event happening in Chester. It's only around the corner. And it's like, no, Lise. It's like two different areas of the country. Like one's here and one's here, so that's not the same. So in my head, Newquay is. I don't know, because I want to say Newquay Brown Ale, but that's Newcastle Brown. I've got no idea. Where is it?
It's in Cornwall.
Do you not see me looking at you going, please, Neil, put me out of my misery. I'm floundering.
But I mean, Cornwall in general is very kind of...
It's very fey, isn't it?
Pixies, it's very still rooted in a lot of folk traditions. And so they are very open to pagan-y things. And so this one kind of had, more kind of pagan-y elements to it. So, but it was in a very, very small, very, very small space. So you had all these different elements of paganism and New Age stuff all kind of mishmashed in there. So it was the right setting because, well, it was all types of people that were going to that because it kind of, those sort of beliefs run through Cornwall in general, because down in Cornwall you've obviously got the Witchcraft Museum in Boscastle.
I still haven't been there. I need to go.
It's fantastic.
We need to do a Beyond Authentic trip one day and get everyone down to Boscastle. Oh God, a road trip! As long as it's in an old camper van, a VW camper. So what was that like? How long ago was that event?
Oh God,
I know time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say over 10 years ago.
Okay,
that was so a very long time ago. So I mean, because that was my only experience, I kind of really didn't know how things had changed, or you know, kind of between the time and what, obviously different ends of the country as well. So I don't really fully know what to expect from this one.
See, it's weird because that sounds like almost like a pagan fed type of event, or like at the camps that I sometimes go to. But then looking at the mind body spirit events, it's almost like, do you remember when Borders Books was in Leeds and we used to sit up in the cafe for hours? There was a mind body spirit section, but then at one point it kind of changed, and it was like, it's almost like it went from new age to actual witchcraft. And it's almost like like one of the managers was like, I'm a witch and this isn't kind of what I want to read, so let's order all of these books actually, and not just the fluffies.
I think it creeped in from mind body spirit kind of, you know, aromatherapy or something, then slowly turned into 100 love spells, or you know, and then it kind of progressed from there into a Wiccan section,
Buckland's Big Blue and things like that. Yeah, it was very much. But that is something I've seen at, like, the changes in the craft. And again, God, we sound like two old curmudgeons, but the changes in the craft and how that affects like the wider events is really fascinating, because there is all sorts of, like, I've been at events where they've had mediumship demonstrations, and it's almost been like spiritualist church events where somebody will get up on stage and all the stall holders have to go, shh, be quiet now. And it's like in like a old church hall or an old social club where they've got the performing stage. So you'll have all the stalls in front, and at the back is a stage, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's so-and-so time. And you can see some of the stall holders kind of go, right, we need to be a bit quiet now. Okay, do you want that? Do you want that tarot set? Right, okay, £25, thank you. And they're doing this because up on the stage somebody's going, and now we're and I don't see those anymore. Like, I've been at events, again, not that I go to a lot of these anymore, but I used to go to quite a lot, because I wanted to do the circuit years ago. I kind of put my feet in the water, and then went, oh, I'm not sure, and then moved, and then life, and then everything else. So it's going back into it has been an interesting thing, because I was going to do it 5 years ago, and then COVID. I was going to do it 2 years ago, and then cancer. And it's like, right, just do it now. But like, there used to be events where they'd get people talking, and it was almost like, oh, you can't quite see, but I've got a picture of Sybil Leek behind me, really famous witchy woman of her time, and it would be like somebody like that who would be there, or like the Scott Cunninghams or the Raymond Buckleys, and it'd be like they'd invite these almost keynote speakers to come, and then you would have like all of the stall holders effectively shutting up shop for an hour to go into the tent or, you know, to the stage area and watch these speakers. And there were speakers at this event, and at the Ilkley event there were speakers, but it was very much the stall holders that were speaking. And so I don't know whether that's a big change as well, like the nature of the events. Yeah,
because like you were mentioning, it's almost like they were there as the guests, educating people about these subjects, where, because these were the stall holders, it's obviously they're going to be talking about things that they're selling and their kind of view on things. Yeah,
I guess it's like if I was to do a talk, it would be about how I read tarot. Which wouldn't necessarily be, this is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and this is, you know, the Empress card means abundance, and it wouldn't necessarily be that. It would be talking about the liminality of tarot, the betweenness, and how something like the Fifth Spirit deck that I have fallen in love with, oh my God, it was so accurate this weekend, it was bonkers. But like, that deck is quite a different style of deck. And so I would talk about how my understanding of tarot has changed, and how each card has a light and dark side, not just on the reversal, and how each placement is different, and so by doing that, by discussing my truth about the tarot, that would then mean that after people have gone, oh well, thank you, Lisa, and hopefully I got a couple of applause or whatever it is, right, there we go, thank you, that is my talk for today, I'm going back to my stall, there would be people that would come up and go, oh, that was really interesting, can I book in?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that I'm going, hi, I am a wonderful tarot reader, come and book me because I have these skills and I'm selling, because I don't think any of the people that did the talks were doing that. But just by talking about their truth, it's kind of like you go, oh, that was really interesting. Or conversely, there might have been somebody that was like, actually, this is my version of witchcraft and I only believe in, I don't know, hedge witchery, and I only believe in, you know, like roadkill and all of this. And this is, and there would be people go, oh, no, that's not for me. But at least that way, it kind of draws your people. Say if you went to a fanzine convention and you were talking about necro, somebody said to you, talk about what necro is. And you're like, well, actually, look, I mean, I've pulled, look at my necros through the years. It's so cool. This is the latest, by the way, issue 50. I'm not paid to plug it, but plug. It's very good. But like, if you were talking about it, you'd go, oh, well, actually, this is how it started. This is why it looks this way. This is why it's got this ethos. I physically make every single issue. I don't just write it. You know what I mean? That would be your thing.
Yeah.
And then somebody there watching that would go, oh, I could make a zine. Other people there would go, oh, I really want to go and buy that and find out more. So even though you're there talking about fanzines in general and how you do it, just by talking about it, it's kind of like a sales pitch. Because you're basically saying, I mean...
Because you're presenting yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's it. But I think... I mean, how we were saying about, obviously, you know, sort of fairs like this are obviously very accessible to anyone because there's a lot of different beliefs there. I mean, I didn't really feel like I wanted to go to any of the talks, not necessarily because, well, I was helping you out, but there was a mix of things where there were some things that were talked about where I was like, yeah, I know about that. But then there were also things that were over my head.
There was a couple of talks I looked at and I was like, oh, actually, I kind of want to go to that and listen to it and see, because I don't understand anything that the thing is about. And that I love. If it wasn't for the fact I was there as a reader, if I was there as a punter, I would have gone to some of the talks. And I'm open-minded enough that sometimes I'll look at something and go, yeah, I don't get it. But actually, I kind of want to know more and see if it's for me. And it might be, oh yeah, that's not in my wheelhouse. No, thank you, sir. But other times it might be, oh, actually, click, there's a little light bulb that's just gone on, and I can do a bit like when you were talking about the Batman pantheon, and using kind of that like comic book iconography in magic. That opened something in my head, and I was like, actually. And we were talking outside this morning, stupid o'clock in the morning, about a friend of mine who had introduced me to little bits of chaos magic to do with time, and how there's this way of kind of expanding and contracting time, like, and I did it on the way to the event, and we actually shaved, I think it was 8 minutes off of off a 20-minute journey. It was ridiculous. And I was like, I'm really glad that you were sat in the car to witness that. And it was like the sat nav is taking into account the road traffic and everything else, and it's saying this is a 20-minute journey, and even with empty roads it's normally at least a 16-17-minute journey, and we shaved 8 minutes off it. And it was just this bonkers thing. When we got there, it was like, oh, actually we're not even late. But that came from a chaos thing, and when I said to you about it, you hadn't heard that. And I said, well, it may well be that the friend that told me about it made it up. He was the first person to use it. But I've been using it for nearly 30 years and it works. And now you've seen it work. There's a little bit of belief from you because you physically witnessed it. And now you're going to go off and see whether you can find any other correspondences and maybe try it yourself. And so instantly we were saying it's like there is now a new thought form for this particular name, which I'm not going to say on here in case it's connected to other things, because I don't know chaos. You're the wizard. And there's a little bit there which, like, actually, even if I've got the name completely wrong, it still works. Therefore, that name is now a time elastic manipulator, and that's wonderful. That is really cool to me. I love that about the craft, and that I'm about to do a Buffy thing with every generation, but with every generation something new is discovered. I think that's wonderful.
I mean, you were talking about you know, in the past, when you've been to some talks, how some kind of throw you in at the deep end.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's when it comes to these events, it's being kind of accessible to all, but I feel like sometimes they can use very alienating language. It's like
sometimes it sounds like they're talking in an alien language, not alienating, in an alien speak.
Well, yeah, it's like when I was trying to describe chaos on this podcast, I was trying to, you know, kind of not talk to everyone like a 5-year-old, try and explain it like through Batman, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like when you kind of got these, you should be kind of conscious that some of the things that you're talking about are very strange to a wide audience.
To a muggle.
Yeah. So
which I hate the word because it's from JK, but to a muggle, like what I do, explaining to people, doing a reading, and I'm like, if I talk about dragons, it means this. Obviously, on the channel, people know that my dragons are the elemental energies I work with, and I call them dragons because for the sake of, you know, visualization purposes and interaction. And they've now become, like we were talking about this as well, they've now become their own thing. And again, have a look back at a previous couple of episodes. There's a whole podcast about what the dragons are. But like saying that to someone, when I say to someone, have you ever had a reading before? And they're like, no, it's my first time at this sort of event. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm about to talk about dragons and you're going to think I'm absolutely bonkers or I've watched too much Game of Thrones. Right, okay. And so there has to be that sort of, right, when I say this, this is what it means. And I have been at events in the past where it feels like walking into a third-year university lecture on advanced quantum mechanics and quantum theory. And I've gone in with my little, right, so the expectations of an experimenter affects the experiment, but I know that much. And then you walk in and it's like, as you can see with the quark bilateral quantum fissure, and it's this Star Trek Big Bang Theory kind of language that is so far out there. And I'm like, excuse me, what's a quark? Isn't that like a cheesy thing that's like cottage cheese? No. I've been to events and I've been to talks where it feels like, hang on, is this the advanced one? Is this talk number 2? What have I missed? Like, and I think that's always a danger, because quite often, I was about to say quite often there's echo chambers, but also I think if anybody had overheard our conversations at 3 a.m. or whatever it was this morning,
that's true.
Like we're already in that zone where we're like, blah, 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 and it's just this, because we've known each other for so long and because we talk about the most weird esoteric shit, and it's like fringe. It's not goop fringe. It's fucking way beyond that. It's so out there. It's on another fucking galaxy, let alone another planet, and yet, because we've got that shorthand, it makes sense. Whereas if Rufus was with us in that conversation, it would have been, actually, when we say this is what I mean, because he hasn't been around that level of sort of advanced theoretical magical practice for that amount of time. And so there is an echo chamber element, but I think it's also really difficult to kind of, once you're talking to your tribe, you know, like for me, talking to people that are non-binary and going, oh yeah, NB this, and they're like somebody else is like, NB? Oh, it means non-binary. Oh, okay. And certainly at one point I will do a special podcast episode about queer witchcraft and all of that, and kind of the pride events and stuff that I used to run and not run, but like be at and even sort of host and things, because there's a massive crossover between those communities as well. Because it's the whole thing of, like we were talking about, finding your tribe, and it's, I mean, I always think about there's a punk band called Pansy Division, or a queer punk band, and how they started because they were punks, but they didn't feel accepted by the gay community, because at the time they're punks.
Because at the time in the 80s, it was like, this is the idea of gay culture. But
jeans, white t-shirt, handlebar moustache.
But then when they were in the punk scene, it was a very masculine environment, and at the time it wasn't very like gay friendly, and so what they did is created a band that was a, you know, gay punk band, and then from doing that, obviously the people that go to the shows are also gay punks, so it's merging the two together. That was like, I find that Like, yeah.
See, that's really cool, because that's almost like, in that equivalent, they are the Necro, the Beyond Authentic of Queen with Freddie Mercury. Like, that's the public mainstream acceptance. Like, look at this person, he's everything you expect a gay to be. And as you go down the sort of down the line into more and more authenticity, less and less mainstream, and then you get people that are 100% authentically them and don't give a toss about, like, that's the expectation of wider society. I don't even want them to acknowledge me because I am me here. I love that. But again, that's kind of what we were talking about, the authenticity in terms of zines, because you could quite happily have gone and worked for Fangoria or Shivers or any of those magazines. You've got so much, like, history of reviewing. You've got, how many films did you say you've done?
1029, I think it was.
I don't think I've even seen that many episodes of combined television in my life. That is bonkers. So with that, like, literally Shivers and all of those magazines, I don't even know if they still exist, Shivers. I haven't seen it for ages. But like, you could easily go and work for them, but that would then put your voice through that corporate filter.
But yeah, it was kind of, I only did one, but I did a fanzine convention once and brought Necro, obviously. And I didn't really fully expect, I didn't really know what they would be. But basically, everyone was doing quite political fanzines and like feminist fanzines and queer fanzines. And then there was me on my stall.
Evil Dead!
There was me just kind of doing a fanzine about films. And I felt very open in that environment. Yeah. So I can kind of relate to the otherness that you felt at the Psychic Fair with that.
If there is... If that is all true, that there's like a niche within a niche within a niche, and we're kind of, because that's what they say about YouTube, is you're supposed to niche down, and then you find your like 1% of the 1% of the 1%. But what would your ideal sort of not psychic fair? What would your ideal witchy fair be for you? What would you envisage? Because I'm sure it's probably different to mine. So what would the Necro Neil, no, not even the Necro Neil, what would be the Chaos Neil ideal, like, this is an event that I am running, where is it going to be, who would you have there, what would it look like?
I mean, I do know that further down south there is very niche, like, psychic fairs, well, psychic fairs, they'll probably call them something else, where there is it is a more queer community vibe of witchcraft. Like, there'll be, because there is, there'll be people who fit on all sorts of spectrums of identity and sexuality and stuff like that. That makes them more accepting of each other's path and magical path. So some of the ones that I've read about where it is that kind of space, there is a lot more experimental things, and there is ones that when I've read about them, like, that seems like there's a lot of chaos going on there, like the good kind. Chaos.
Capital C chaos.
Yeah, like more kind of experimental things, and a great amount of respect. And it's kind of within that there is people who publish witch fanzines and stuff like that. So my ideal idea would be a place where you can come in and go, I'm someone with a wacky belief. Oh, you're someone with a wacky belief. Oh, you're, have a unique identity, whether or not that's gay, trans, goth, or whatever, where it's actually just a lot of individuals who respect each other and kind of are able to express their strange beliefs, like in a safe ground, really. So yeah, just a lot of magical, different backgrounds, mishmash.
So I do think that's a bit of a cop-out, saying that your favourite one is one that almost already exists. That's a bit like, all right, I'm just going to nick the idea from someone that's already doing it.
I don't know.
That's plagiarism. Plagiarism!
I don't know. I could go to one of these and be like, this is a lot of shit, actually. This isn't exactly how I envisioned other.
But it would be your imagined version of what you know of that event.
Yeah, I mean, it was, basically.
So I think mine, it's interesting that you talk about like the niching down. It's the subculture thing, because like within the goth culture, like there were goths, and then they developed cyber goths, and then there were like the more anime goths, and then there was the sanguinarian goths, and then there's like and then there's all these different offshoots. And within goth culture, being witchy is perfectly accepted, being LGBTQIA plus is perfectly accepted, being punk is perfectly accepted, you know, having very political queer identity, using that word as separate to be from LGBTQIA plus, having the queer political identity within a lot of goth culture, all of that used to be accepted. So sort of, I think my ideal festival would be kind of a mashup of pagan but not quite pagan fed meets Whitby Goth Fest meets a punk pride meets a chaos event. Like if you could bring all of those communities into one, I would want it in ideally somewhere like that was an old church. That I think would be wonderful. And it would be the otherness festival.
I mean, I think
are you other? Are you an outsider? Come hither. Come hither and thither with us.
Well, yeah, I think that's what I would like, where you just lots of different paths. Life paths and magical paths. Yeah,
and then there would be someone there that is representing Goop selling selenite, whatever love eggs, and also on the store next door, somebody with, you know, BDSM bondage equipment, and next door to that is somebody selling, you know, handmade pentacles made out of willow that they've grown and taken from the hedges, and next to, like, here's a demonolatry like store with like Satan skulls and everything else screaming out. That is my ideal.
But yeah, I mean, how we said about something that is quite a sanitized version of New Age, whatever, there is a clique within that. But then also, if you've got a load of weirdo chaos magicians together, there's a clique within that. So I feel like either way, it's going to have its difficulties.
Oh, you're going to have cliques no matter what.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of 80s horror but want something different? Do you like modern horror but the regular magazines leave you a bit cold? Are you a fan of that schlocky horror that no one else seems to talk about? Check out Necronomicon, the UK horror zine from Etsy.com. Just search for Necroneil.
Blue Chalice is a small business making crafty creations for the witchy community. From jewellery to wall hangings, witch bells to altar tiles. Why not have a look at bluechalice.etsy.com. But it's like what I do on the tarot stream when I literally start talking and I go off on a tangent, and then I need the mods to go time, which was also a funny thing from the weekend, because at one point you and Ed just walked past. I was doing a reading. I'd finished the reading and I was just chatting to the woman, and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do your reading, get them out the chair, get the next one in. But that's not me. So I'm just going, oh yeah, that's the reading. She's paid everything else. And I'm going, oh yeah, blah, 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 chatty. And you and Ed walked past once, and you walk past, and then 5 minutes later, you walk past the other way. And then you walk past again. And I was like, yes, I know. We're just chatting now.
Yes, in real life modding.
In real life, yeah, they were literally modding me in real life. It was fun. It was literally fabulous. I loved it. But that was also the moment where I was like, yeah, actually, you are quite right. I have spent a lot of time talking to this one person, but actually, that's what I want to do here. And I don't care. And that was the moment where I was like, right, I'm not going to do half-hour readings because I can't. And if a reading takes 45 minutes, it'll take 45 minutes. And I'm fine with that. And if it means I don't make any money, then I'm fine with that. This is what I'm here to do. And it was that moment where it was like, the two of you were like my business manager going,
yeah, writing down your schedule.
And they did as well. Yeah. I had a list of things, and like at one point you came up and you were like, have you got space at 4?
Yeah, I've got you a booking.
I was like, what? But no, it was a good festival. I don't think it was either of our ideal festivals, but I don't think our ideal festivals will ever exist.
No.
I think they're probably part of a bygone time, because I think the world has moved beyond that DIY aesthetic. Just to sum this up, what did you think of this particular event?
I enjoyed it just to people watch, see what's around, you know, and it was good seeing you back in that world of you know, psychic fairs. So it was a fun weekend. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the event. There were some lovely, lovely people. I spoke to some really lovely stallholders. It wasn't what I expected, but it kind of was.
Yeah.
Like, and it was really eye-opening to see the type of people that still go to the mind, body, spirit type events.
Yeah.
And to see where that type of festival how that's changed from like the last ones that I was part of. So that was really interesting. I will forevermore be grateful for being there, for having me and the mods. Like that made it.
Yeah, that was the best thing about it. I think that was a great example of, you know, all the mods are from very different backgrounds, but still have this thing in common.
We've got that link. So we found our tribe.
So yeah, it's a good example of how you can have individual kind of strange little spooky ideas be from totally different backgrounds, and that's the thing that brings you together. So
there is something about our community where the authenticity of somebody, and like your authenticity attracts people to you, both from the zine and also from your magical practice. Like with Lorna and that, mine does for me, Patricia's does for her, Ed's authenticity shines through, Holland's authenticity shines through. And so you've got this element where the people whose honest truth is shining brightly, everybody else can't see it, but the people that recognize it will see it instantly. And it's like we share a color of aura, and nobody else can see that particular color. But if you're tuned into that frequency, like infrared or something, like all of us can see that. And so naturally you're like, these are my people. I actually want to do more events, like in different areas, and different types of events. Like I'd love to do my now slightly corporate pop-up banners at a DIY punk event. I think that'd be really cool. Like everyone else is there with like handmade on cardboard and that real sort of aesthetic, and there's me like, hello, I'm corporate Lisa. Hello, Clarence Heiss. Like I think I want to do more things like that and just go, hiya. Just
see where you actually fit in different.
And I won't fit in any of them, because I go to a punk event, I'll feel like, oh yeah, I'm a corporate sellout. I go to a corporate event, I feel like the punk one there. No matter what I do, it's like I am me, and there's only one of me, so therefore I'm going to feel other no matter where I go. But that's also fine. I'm fine with that. Anything you want to wrap up with? I want to wrap up with, by the way, issue 50 of Necronomicon. I know I'm going to flog it, even though you can't. Issue 50 of Necronomicon is out. Get it on Etsy.com and search for Necro Neil on Etsy. I love it. I love it so much. If you like horror films that are of the type that are the video nasties of the 80s, the films that are even so bad they're good, go and watch it. Because even the really crap films, you'll love because they're really crap. Even though, like, in every other way of marking it, lighting was bad, the sound bad, the acting was bad, the film was bad, the film stock was old, the editing was crap. Every other way, and yet you'll go, but it's really authentic, it's really charming. I love that about Necro. But also, we did have a conversation, by the way, everybody, yesterday again, where I said, is there a list of films that you've seen that you would never put in here? And he was like, yeah, it's the meh.
Yeah.
Meh.
If I haven't got a strong opinion about it, what's the point?
Meh. Yeah. And anyway, I think that wraps up this episode. Anything you want to add?
I think it's just really good being in person recording.
I tell you what was really good, for you seeing me do the live stream last night.
Yeah, it was very fun. See, the energy was so different, actually in person.
Because you could also see how frantic it is behind the scenes, where I'm like, this hasn't worked, because I was late getting on last night on the stream because the internet wasn't down, but Firefox was reinstalling and updating, and I'm like, I should be live. Why is this happening? I can't do it. And then having you sat there modding.
Oh right, okay. Yeah, I see this.
Yeah, and you see it like, oh, actually, this is why she clicks the wrong button sometimes, because I've got a whole list of videos on the side of the page. But yeah, that was really cool as well.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll do this again. But no, I think next time I'll be back in the shadows with a crap web camera in a hood, because when I'm out the house I don't wear that hood. So
no, well, this is it. I think this is the first time people have seen you actually looking less like the sort of Aleister Crowley-esque image from the things, because you actually do have a body and you do actually like wear clothes that aren't black. Because on stream, especially with your webcam, on stream sometimes it's like, is Neil really in the shadows?
Oh no, because when I met the mods, I was outside and I was like, are they going to actually recognise me? But they went, mustache. Neil. The floating mustache in the dark. They know it's me.
Yep, that's the one. And I think in person you come across as more hipster than like scary wizard. No, not in a negative way, but like on the video sometimes, especially when we're like, and you do the wavy arms. Yeah. I think in person, like you look a lot less scary, because you aren't scary at all. Like there's nothing scary about you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have friendships with people that are that that.
I mean, like we were talking about last night with the fanzine, people have expected a very different person.
Yeah.
To the person when they meet them. So
yeah, because outwardly you appear to be somebody who would make their own jam out of fruit that's happily fallen from the tree and make your own kombucha, whereas actually you're somebody who likes delving into the deep underbelly of society in many different ways and then writing about it in a zine, but also in many other ways delving deep and discovering things. And it's I just think I love it every time. And I really wanted you to be stood there when the mods came up and saw you for the first time, but actually you'd met them already, but by that time, because I just wanted them to go, hi Neil, and then do that kind of that mental, you can see that mental switching of gears where it's like, oh, actually you're not the person I thought you were. And actually, but I think for anybody that watches the live streams, Neil on the live stream is a different voice almost to Necro Neil from the Necronomicon. It's fascinating. It really is fascinating. But anyway, you've got to see us both in the same room, and there you go. Hopefully that's been interesting. I don't know, because we've just chatted, but then again, isn't that the whole point of this bloody podcast? Is there anything magical? We didn't do any magical questions or anything this week.
No. On magical memories moment.
No, we didn't, did we? Jesus.
I suppose that all the stuff talking about the stuff with the psychic fair was the
magical moments. Yeah, I guess. I mean, the overriding question, I guess, would be: would you recommend for somebody out there that is looking for advice or looking for, finding their community? Would you advise for somebody to go to the sort of events that we've been at and been talking about today?
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah. Because it's a bit like a gateway drug, isn't it? Like, you'll go to that sort of event, you'll get a psychic reading, you might get a bit of mediumship, you might pick up some crystals, but then you'll also have a conversation with lots of people that can open different doors. And you'll have a conversation maybe with someone that will say, oh, there's this other event that's happening. If you're into, wild woman witchcraft, there's actually a wild woman witchcraft event happening over here next month. Maybe that'd be more fitting.
Well, yeah.
So I would also recommend, as much as it's about finding your tribe, it's that thing of you don't know until you give it a go.
Yeah.
And it may well be that somebody's watching this and thinks, oh, I don't really want to do chaos and I don't want to do liminal magic. And you might go to an event and you might find something which is right up your street. And that might be crystals and kinesiology photography. Because that is how I came into this, was through crystals and healing and kinesiology. Absolutely, if you see a mind body spirit event advertised, if you see a psychic fair, anything like that advertised in your neighborhood, give it a go. Go with an open heart, an open mind, not necessarily an open wallet, but go, give it a go, have a look at the talks, go to some of the talks. Even if you think, actually, I've been learning about Wicca for 20 years, go to a Wiccan talk, because there might be one comment that changes your perspective. And then go to the ones that are slightly more on the extremes of stuff that you wouldn't normally do. And there should be events for most people in the UK, up and down the country. And I know worldwide, there's a lot more of these sort of events. So yeah, totally recommended. But anyway, that is going to be it for today. This feels really weird wrapping up in person. So as we always say, keep practicing.
Keep experimenting.
See, normally there's a time delay on that. Do you realise? because of the interaction, because of the way the internet works, I normally go keep practicing. 1, 2, 3. Keep experimenting. But yeah, do keep practicing, do keep experimenting, and as we always say, we'll see you next time. Bye bye. Wow, wavy hands. And then nothing's working because I haven't moved the mouse in so long.